everyone. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome. My name is Jessica Kennedy, and I'm the Educator for Adult Learning and Access for All Program Director here at the St. Louis Art Museum. I'm so happy to welcome you today to the museum for the Joanne and Alan Kohn lecture presented by the Frank Lloyd Wright House in Ebsworth Park. Since 2008, our two institutions have worked together to present an annual lecture on the work of Frank Lloyd Wright. Following the lecture, our speaker will take questions from the audience. Just raise your hand and someone will come to you with a microphone. To get us started, I'd like to welcome to the stage Catherine Felt, the Executive Director of the Frank Lloyd Wright House in Ebsworth Park, who will introduce today's speaker.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, Jessica, and all the work you've put into our event this afternoon. We are so grateful for the continued partnership with St. Louis Art Museum. This has been such a popular lecture event, and we're so thrilled to have our speaker who is going to wow you with this super interesting project. And I'm amazed at how many people are here this afternoon. It's unbelievable. Thank you for coming to this auditorium. I know it's a beautiful day out. The Joanne and Alan Kohn lecture exists because the conversation around Frank Lloyd Wright's legacy doesn't belong exclusively to scholars or specialists. It belongs to all of us, the preservationists, the curious, devoted fans, and first-time visitors. Speaking of those fans, we are especially honored to welcome guests from the Frank Lloyd Wright Building Conservancy's Out and About program, a reminder that the community of care for Wright's building extends beyond any single site. This year's presentation features Anderton Court Shops on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, one of Wright's later works, spiraling, assertive, and unmistakably his. Like many landmarks of its era, it faced a familiar tension: preservation versus commerce, protecting what was built while allowing a living building to serve a living city. While Givenchy and LVMH chose to do with that building is a remarkable journey of what I'll call radical stewardship. Our presenter is Erin Fowlkes, as Givenchy's Senior Director of Store Planning and now Strategic Sourcing Director for LVMH. Erin brings deep expertise in retail design to a complex historic rehabilitation project, navigating city approvals, adapting to unexpected discoveries, and keeping the integrity of the original design at the center of every decision. Please join me in welcoming my friend, Erin Fowlkes.
Good afternoon, Catherine. Thank you so much for that. I don't think I deserved half of what you said, but I'm going to take 100% of it. First off, I just thank you again for inviting me to speak today on this project, which was wild. Second, thank you, Jeffrey Herr, for introducing me to Catherine and for honoring us with a Spirit Award last year. We were in Out and About this weekend, and it was a wonderful, wonderful time. Again, my name is Erin Fowlkes. I am not an architect, so if you are expecting this conversation to be taken from an architect's point of view, it's not going to happen. However, I'm an architect of people. That's what I like to call myself, and we're going to look at this more through the lens of a designer and what we learned and what we needed to continue to do. So I'm hoping you're here to talk about the Givenchy's rehabilitation of Frank Lloyd Wright's Anderton Court Shops. If you're not, please stay. Good. That landed well. I like that. Okay, good. I'm going to be a little quirky. I do have a personality, so just get ready. So Givenchy is part of a larger organization called LVMH. Not sure how many people know about that. We do own one or two brands. Remarkably, Louis Vuitton, Christian Dior, Fendi, Givenchy, also Sephora. We do have a wines and spirits side as well, which is Moët, Hennessy, Veuve, and also Dom Pérignon. So we do have a couple things. It's a little bit of a wild organization to work in. It's a wonderful organization to work in. And I just wanted to do a little bit of history on this. First, every presentation has to start with a quote. Why not? A doctor can bury his mistakes, but an architect can only advise his clients to plant vines. When doing this project, there was many a time I wanted to bury this project in vines. There's parts of my life I would like to bury in vines. I was not able to do that. We had to move forward and actually execute the project. But LVMH architecture. So LVMH is characterized by iconic high-end designs which encompass corporate landmarks, innovative cultural centers, and high-end retail flagships, much like the one we're going to talk about today, which serve as a physical extension of its luxury identity. So a few of those iconic LVMH buildings. This is the Foundation Louis Vuitton in Paris. It was designed by Frank Gehry. This art museum resembles a sailboat with 12 glass sails made of 3,600 glass panels, and it serves as a museum and cultural center. We also have the La Samaritain, which was a major restoration project blending Art Nouveau and Art Deco styles with contemporary elements. This is a large department store also in Paris. Tiffany Landmark, another one of our small little brands that we do own. This building first opened in 1940, and there was a 4-year renovation that was done. It started in 2019, ended in 2023, and this includes a new innovative architectural addition on the roof by design architects Oma. Boop, I love a good laser pointer. And then last but not least is the LVMH Tower, which was designed by Christian de Portsmouth Park, which is 24 stories, features a folded glass facade that deforms traditional skyscraper geometry to avoid reflecting neighboring buildings. And my office is about right there. This is on 57th and Madison. One other thing that LVMH does, which I am really quite proud of, is there's something called Life in Architecture, and it started in 2015. And it uses this initiative to drive sustainable design and eco-designs with energy efficient systems to reduce carbon footprints. This is something I'm very proud of, and also my projects now are really trying to create more of a sustainable architectural future. But let's get back to the project. So nothing can happen without a team, and I think first and foremost, I would not be standing here without the team that was behind me. Again, I do consider myself an architect of people, and the team was quite phenomenal. Delphine Weiss, so she's the head of architecture for Givenchy in Paris. She's a titan in her industry. She worked for Christian Dior for many, many years. She's someone that I consider a friend and a mentor. I learned so much from her, not only on this project, but also throughout my career. Second, Georgina Shiraz, love her, love the personality behind her. Quirky, clearly. I took this photo. Fun, intelligent, so quick, so bright, so talented. She currently works for Chanel. And when she left, she sent me a card with these stickers in the card that fell out all over the floor. I have all of them, and I have them stuck around my office. Jonathan Morin, this was my project manager and also someone else I call a friend. He sent me this photo when he found the entrance to the spire. We couldn't figure out how to get in, and we were trying to fit structurally where it was sitting, and when he found it, he was like, hello! He has 20 years of construction. This man thinks of his clients first and the client needs, and that is so rare when it comes to construction. And his absolutely fabulous daughter, Maddie, who I love to pieces. I always try to go to all of Maddie's birthday parties. I actually showed up with a 5-foot-tall teddy bear because she loved Winnie the Pooh. And taking the Amtrak from New York City to Philly, I had a lot of homeless people want to talk to me about a teddy bear. Last but not least, Alan Hirsch Construction was our general contractor, another titan in the industry. Alan was supposed to be here today, but because he is Alan, he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, which is taking care of his clients. They have developed and done many buildings, especially in Rodeo Drive, probably about 60%. He is another person that I can pick up the phone and call just because I have a question, even if it's not my project. And because of this team, this project actually happened and was as successful as it was. So let's get into a little bit of the history of the Anderton Court Shops. Not sure how many people know about it. Anderton Court Shops is on the West Coast, clearly Rodeo Drive, and is one of two actual buildings that are for commerce that are not residential, the other being the V.C. Morris Shops, which is up in San Francisco. This was commissioned by Nina Anderton. Nina Anderton was a socialite. She had a plot of land, shockingly enough, on Rodeo Drive, and in 1951 she asked Frank Lloyd Wright to do a design for her. A few fun facts about Nina Anderton. She was robbed 20 times in her Bel Air mansion, 4 times, which is shocking. And in her obituary, my parents are here, please keep this in mind if I die before you, I want something just as fabulous as this. She is thought to bring the permanent wave over from Paris. Not sure how many people know that, but me being me, I had to figure out what that was. And the permanent wave, I'm going to read this, was a 10-hour salon service involving heat, chemicals, and alkaline solution, brass curlers, and a chattering machine with electrically heated clamps creating durable curls for short bobbed hair. So that 1920s wave, women were tortured for 10 hours to be that fabulous. I don't know how much has changed. On top of that, Eric Bass. So this building was supposed to be named after her friend and designer, Eric Bass. He was supposed to be the manager of the building and live in the penthouse. However, some sort of falling out happened. I can't seem to find any research about it, but Nina unfortunately was left with a building that didn't have a manager and had one less tenant. On top of that right there does not surprise anybody with the Frank Lloyd Wright. This project ended up costing twice what it was supposed to. And Nina was very willing to spend money until Nina was not willing to spend money. And one of the few things when they were doing a value engineering, fiberglass was something that was new that had just happened. And so the spire along with the finials across the front were supposed to be made of copper. But copper was too expensive, and it was supposed to oxidize much like the Statue of Liberty or the Woolworth Building. But they had a new material called fiberglass that they were able to dye and make it look like copper. This building time frame was started in 1952, opened in 1954. I think this is fantastic. Givenchy was founded in 1952. I really find that very exciting, and I really drove that one home with Beverly Hills. So this was the first Department of Buildings that when it was submitted to the city. I think there's really only 2 points that are really interesting here. Is first, you've got architect's name, you have Frank Lloyd Wright, of course it's on it, but you have representative Aaron G. Green. So Aaron G. Green was actually a protege of architect Frank Lloyd Wright, who he signed the application clearly. He was a member of his apprenticeship group, the Taliesin Fellowship, and when Frank Lloyd Wright learned that Aaron was moving to San Francisco, he suggested opening a joint office where together they would continue, Aaron could continue his own independent practice and serve as Wright's West Coast representative. And they maintained a close relationship for 20 years until Frank Lloyd Wright died. The only other noteworthy piece of information on this is the most commonly used word is concrete. So let's get into the design. So I don't know how many of you have actually seen the floor plans of this particular project, but per Frank Lloyd Wright, it was never going to be easy. And he began with a triangle, added another one to create another triangle. Duplicates that, adds one of those, duplicates, adds two more of those, adds them to the end because nothing's ever easy. Fills in the top, you turn this on its 90-degree angle and you have the hexagonal shape of what this building is. Everything is based on a triangle, which, as you know, makes things really interesting and makes things really quite difficult. So each of these spaces are called shops. So you have shop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, plus a penthouse at the top. This is shop 1, this is shop 2. We have 3 and 4. Shop 4 also connects to shop 2 through an airspace here, and there's actually a balcony where you can look over. And then you have 5 and 6 has an outdoor balcony. You have the penthouse here in the back, which we'll get to a little bit more, and then this is a beautiful rendering just to the front of the building. The back of the building is nowhere near as exciting as the front of the building. Another couple fun facts here. Each of these shops are half a level off. So if you look, you've got actually half levels, and they are not connected. Now, shop 2 and 4 later on, there is a staircase that's in between, but there is no actually access point between them. And this building is a precursor to the Guggenheim, and if you take a look at the ramp here, that is there. We're going to get into ADA compliance a little bit later because this was quite a hurdle with this project. So these are the actual construction photos when this building was under construction. What I find fascinating about this is 2 things. I actually never saw these photos until after I completed the project. That was number 1. Number 2, I just really love historical photos. I really would have loved to seen this because we were trying to find how the spire was built. But again, these were not available until, I want to say September, and we opened August 1st. I love the cars. And I actually think these might still be there. So this is a picture of the store, of the building when it opened, before any tenants moved in. These are the original colors of the building. A few other historical photos, these are all black and white, but this is after vendors had moved in. This photo specifically was very helpful when we moved into doing landscaping, because we were trying to figure out what to do and we wanted to hold as close as we possibly could to the original. This photo will come back again as well. This is actually the windows of the penthouse in the back. I love this photo. I love a historical photo. A parking lot on Beverly Hills. Can you imagine? This is actually Ferragamo and David Yurman now. And I love that for those of you who have been to Beverly Hills recently, the street doesn't look like this. It now has a massive median with palm trees in the middle of it, and it's got 2 lanes on each side. And then this is the outdoor terrace from Shop 6. This is a color photograph of the penthouse in the back. This still does exist. This will be of no shock to anyone, but there is quite a lot of water issues that we have with the roof. So there is quite a bit of water damage in this. This currently isn't being used for anything, but it is a very interesting space. Fun fact, can't prove it, but fun fact, this was a pied-à-terre that was used by Frank Sinatra back in the day. That'll come back around. So this photo is from the late 70s, early 80s. By now you can see some things have changed. The building has changed color. There's been some rather odd additions added to this. And then we've had some tenants coming in. I think this is so fantastic. It's so odd, but so fantastic. And then we're gonna talk about this fun little space here. This is now a giant Saint Laurent space, or store, but this was called the Daisy. I don't know how many people know what the Daisy is, but the Daisy was the Studio 54 of the West Coast. I love that. Okay, so it was opened in 1962, and it was a members-only private lunch spot and discotheque. So it did both. I love a dual thing on Rodeo Drive with a $250 initiation fee and limit of 400 members. It was hugely popular with the Hollywood elite because their menu was named after all of their members. Frank Sinatra was actually publicly seen with Mia Farrow here, so this would be perfect if his pied-à-terre was next door. And another fun fact, O.J. Simpson met his future wife, Nicole Brown. She was a waitress here. This is where they met. One other fun fact, oh, you're a great audience. Another fun fact is that Diana Ross on August 11th, 1969, hosted Motown's newest act, the Jackson 5, launched here. So enough of that, let's go back to our story. So the beginning, this was the beginning. This is the first photograph I have that I took of this building. This is where, these are my favorites. I was with my CEO and my president, and we went out to Rodeo Drive. I had seen this building multiple times. I had worked in many different brands, and I had actually walked past this. And I went, you want to do what? And you want me to do how? And I'm going to give you a little foreshadowing here that, this was what we found. This is what we, a few things had changed. This was the initial rendering that we had done. And then this is actually what we were able to achieve. So this is what we opened with on August 1st of 2024. I think the team did a fantastic job. Ooh, I love the claps. But let's take a little bit of a deeper dive. So this project, I really take a look at, it's sort of like an iceberg, because in my arrogance, which I can be a little from time to time, this is what we knew, this is what we did not know. And anybody who's dealt with the Frank Lloyd Wright project or owns one of these homes, I'm pleased we can go have a Xanax and a drink together. But the known aspects of the project, what we knew is that the building was a general state of disrepair, because we can see that from the picture. We knew it was identified as a Frank Lloyd Wright building, of course. And then we knew that there was going to be some additional city approvals that were going to be required. However, that gets much larger. The unknown aspects of this project were the full extent of the building's poor condition. It was really in a quite worse state than what we saw. The requirements for ADA compliance, I've touched on that, but then also I was hoping that this project would be grandfathered in and I wouldn't have to, dare I say, deal with that, but I did get to, and I learned a lot. And then the implications of this building being listed on the local register of historical properties and the city of Beverly Hills. That changed everything. So, also, we're just going to add that the other unforeseen issues that came along with all of this. So, any project, I highly recommend doing a survey. I'm going to say that again. Any project you take, do a survey. This is the company that we use, Designer Edge. They can be expensive. I think they're worth every penny. The money that you save on the back end, just in change orders alone, is far outpays anything that you're going to do here. So we use Designer Edge. What I like about this company is they took our actual architectural plans, and then every single one of these dots in the PDF, if you click on it, it actually pops up a photo of that. So the green dots have an arrow. If you click on those, it actually shows you the direction of the photo, and all of the blue dots are 360. So we're gonna click on this dot that I've highlighted, and these are a couple of the just snips of the 360 photo and a couple changes that had happened. So this staircase, this was never the original entrance to Shop 1, and also this red carpet is beyond fabulous. The original entrance was actually down this ramp, and we thought this cabinet was a cabinet. It wasn't a cabinet. It's actually hiding the rest of the ramp going down. This was, we assumed, one of the original fireplaces in the space, but we didn't know this fantastic linoleum floor. And then this veneer, we didn't know what this was either. We thought this was just an additional bench. It's actually not. This is the original part of the building. So when we took possession of this, the landlord told us, yeah, you can do whatever you want. It's fine. That was absolutely not true. We're going to take a little bit deeper dive, and what I love about doing these surveys is you get to see what is there, but then you also get to see what you might actually be missing. So this diagram is, we're looking at this spot here, and we're going to talk about this right here. So we're going to click on 289 and 102, and if you look at this, this is the interior of the building. But this is the exterior of the building. What are we missing? Where is this? So we already knew we had to pad the budget a little bit because there were voids, there were missing sections, there was things that we didn't know what to find. And I love a survey just for that reason because, okay, as we're designing this, we're doing this, we're gonna have some TBDs on our architectural set. And as we're submitting those to the general contractor for bid, we know we need to put a little bit of money in there being like, okay, I don't know what's here. We want to open this up. We love this idea. We want to remove all of these atrocious fake plants and redo this. But what's that going to look like? So next question, going back into this iceberg scenario, specifically at the top, because we hadn't taken a deep dive yet, is, are we ADA compliant? Of course, the answer to that is no. We couldn't possibly be ADA compliant. Going back to the initial plans, as I said, over here in Shop 1, the original entrance, which is over here, the original entrance to this space was actually down this long ramp, down this long hallway, around the corner, through the back. That was the main entrance to this building, Shop 1. I don't know where that is. That doesn't exist anymore. The new entrance is through this. And now there are stairs in the front of this shop, as well as there are stairs in the back of the shop. That is not ADA compliant. Another fun issue that we had, I just highlighted this here, is this door, because right angles don't exist in a Frank Lloyd Wright shop or building. And also, the door opens outward. You need 90 degrees. This does not give us 90 degrees for ADA compliance. So here's the stairs, and here's this front door which swings open, and it opened to maybe this. It was just absolutely tiny. So we got our architectural plans together, and I would state, whenever you have a conversation of this magnitude that you need to have with somebody, be on site, have a conversation with them. I flew from New York City to LA to meet with the gentleman who was doing what's called a CASP survey, or ADA compliance, and we walked the entire building with him. And he realized what we were doing. So this door here, we were able to actually make it swing both ways because the overall capacity for Shop 2 was under 50 people. So we were able to do actually an inward pull. We made it swing both ways because we didn't want to confuse our customers. But adding an actuator to the outside of it, then that makes it for ADA compliance for wheelchair. On top of that, we did an actuator in the back to open the back door, and then we did an ADA compliant parking space. Now we have 18 parking spaces with this in the back, so we removed one because we are legally required to. Fun fact about Beverly Hills, that if you remove a parking space, even if you're required to do it, then they will require you to purchase a parking space in Beverly Hills. Those start at 6 figures. Thank you for that. So we did a little bit of research and we realized that there's actually more parking spaces than there are cars in Beverly Hills. So we were able to get around that because I really needed this money for other things, which are the more unforeseen things that we didn't know that were coming. A few other things that we did, we widened this door here. We made the restroom fully ADA compliant, and we made the fitting room fully ADA compliant. Now, ADA compliance is also not just about physical disabilities. We have sight and we have hearing impaired as well. So a few other things that we did on the ramps themselves, we raised all the exit signs, we minimized them, and then the grates in the ramps we also brought up so they were flush. We were hoping that the ramps were going to be ADA compliant. ADA compliant is a 5% grade. This ramp, it ranges between 10 to 11%. Correct. This is a precursor to the Guggenheim. Can you imagine me going into City Hall and being like, so I'm going to tear this down and I'm going to rebuild this? That's never going to happen. So in a very long conversation with this gentleman who understood what we were doing, I was able to tell him what our scope was, what our plans were, and then in all other spaces of our scope, we were doing ADA compliant fitting rooms. We were doing ADA compliant everything else. And we were able to, from a physically disabled as in a wheelchair, we could actually host any client in this space and bring them everything they wanted. And then we also had people on site, if they wanted to be wheeled up the ramp, we were able to take care of them for that as well. Because of that, he gave us ADA compliance and we passed the test. I had a massive champagne celebration that evening, was really quite pleased. So in my arrogance, which happens from time to time, we thought we were ready for City Hall. I had my architect on board. It was the Lochte Architecture Group out of San Francisco who did the VC Moët Shops. We had a historical architect from Los Angeles, very well known, called Page and Turnbull. And I thought, you know what? I've also got my project manager, who you saw with his lovely daughter, and we had Alan Hirsch on board. Okay, so I thought this was how my presentation was going to be. We met with the urban planners. I can be a tad bit charming if I need to be, and I was hoping that we were just gonna have a lovely, fun conversation. It was going to go great. It was gonna be, yes, absolutely, that's fine. This is how it went. This is probably one of the biggest failures I've ever done. The man, the urban planner, God bless him, wanted nothing to do with me. I was basically a fly on the wall. And he kept asking just the architect and the heritage architect the questions. And I, as an executive, hadn't planned them for that. And I was really quite distraught. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? We have a timeline. We have to open. And so this is one thing I'm not afraid of. I was like, I need help. I cannot do this alone. So I opened the door of my office and I marched down the hall down to my president's office. And I walked in and I was like, I need help. And I'll never forget, she's just sitting there typing away. And she looked up and she said, you never ask for help. You always just figure things out. I'm like, well. So she's like, what do you need? I need a lawyer. I need somebody who knows the ins and outs of Beverly Hills City Hall. I need someone who can be my right hand, who can help me navigate the back end while I'm navigating the front end. I don't mind being the face of the project, but I need to know what I need to know. And what we didn't know was this document here. So this is the standards for rehabilitation for the historic properties. And saying that to this group probably is like, duh. But for me, I had never done this before. So the urban planner was talking to us and asking us questions through these 10 little questions that are not little. We were not ready to answer these questions, which is where the hiccup came. We knew that the building was one of these resolutions and was a historical property, but what we didn't know was what that actually meant. So the hexagonal shape of the building, the materials, the reinforced concrete, the plaster finish, the fiberglass, the glass, the aluminum, the central spire with interior lights, which by the way, we don't have one photo of what that was supposed to look like. I hope we did well. And with this information and the legal counsel, we were then better to understand what we needed to do and how to get approvals and how to go back to City Hall. So what we did is we took my iPhone photo and we started laying out what had changed. Because this is not a restoration, this is a rehabilitation. Those are very different things and I had to be very careful with my words. We were rehabilitating the building the way it was and bringing it up to standard from where it currently was. So we needed to call out to the city what had changed. And then what we wanted to change back if we were able to do it. So the metal frame on the terrace, the perforated middle screen that was added, this is gonna come back later. Also the butt joints glazing, this used to be aluminum, it no longer is. The doors have been altered, I'm actually kind of grateful for that, it made my life a lot easier. The windows have been altered, and then these amazing stair obelisks. On top of that, we looked at the old historical photos as well. What had changed? What did we possibly want to bring back that maybe we would be able to bring back to the building? Again, here are the doors that had been adjusted. And then the old shop window actually was full height. We had hoped to be able to do this, but this ended up being far too complicated and I ran out of time and money. But we did want to bring this back because this horrible railing here just had to go away, and we wanted to bring some of the greenery back. Portholes still exist. They'd been painted over. Some had two-way mirrors. So we went back to City Hall. So I now had a lawyer. I now knew what I was supposed to do, and my lawyer, Deborah Quick, she's from Perkins Coie in San Francisco, she looked at me and said, get ready, we're going to present to the Cultural Heritage Committee. I didn't know what that was. I said, okay. And so what we needed to do is put together an entire deck to present to the Cultural Heritage Committee on the project. We needed their approval to move forward, and we needed at least half of the commission's approval to move forward. So what we did is we put together a 40-page deck, because I am not an overachiever, I promise. And we got ready to go. So this was our cover deck. So in here is your symbol legend, the building code, what our scope of work was going to be, where the building actually lies in Beverly Hills, our rendering in between the two. And then within this deck also was the exterior photos, what the building actually looked like at current state, which was not great. Areas of improvement, there was a lot. What we wanted to do, what we had hoped to do, what we wanted to remove these obelisks, that we wanted to touch up the paint, that we wanted to just make it better. The character-defining features, super important, things that we couldn't touch. So the back stairwell. Also the fireplaces, which kind of are a question mark. We didn't know if they were there. They were behind millwork. They were behind a wall. We didn't know if they were there or not. And then more of areas of improvement. So this is actually the landscape in the middle of the spire. So they had just let it go. It was just this pit. This was another one of the planters that they had covered with a wood piece and painted it white. This is actually a planter. The way that the ramp lighting was quite terrible. All of the finials were starting to rot. The wood underneath it was rotting away. This piece was falling off. These are the grates that we ended up changing. So we had all of this information, the things that we wanted to do, and then we had also had just the overall presentation of what we had hoped to achieve in the end. And then also the foliage plan. What were we going to do? How were we going to do landscaping? We took a look again at the old photos, and then we called out Frank Lloyd Wright plants, he liked his prairie plants, to see what we could possibly do. We requested that we wouldn't be held accountable to these, as we realized for different seasons, because we actually do change these plants out depending on the season. The other fun thing that we did is for signage. I don't know how many people know the rules of Rodeo Drive, but the frontage that you have on Rodeo Drive dictates how much signage you have. So if you have 20 feet of frontage, you have 20 feet of signage. We have 150 feet of frontage. We chose to do far less than that. And the reason why is because this is about the building. It's not about us. It's really about making sure that the building gets upkept, gets a bit of a facelift, and gets to be beautiful. And we also chose not to do backlit signing because we didn't want to have to do any more intrusive work into the concrete. So we just called out a little bit of signage here, the flag, which we actually have since removed, and we marched into City Hall. So I am ready to go. I show up, actually for those of you who know me, I do have blazers with spikes on them. I did not have spikes on my blazers. I did have spikes on my briefcase. And I showed up with basically legal counsel and an entire team. And now in hindsight, I called my father the next day and I was like, you know what, I think we scared them. And they took us very seriously because we walked in as a corporation. And I meant to just walk in and be serious and to let them know that we were taking it seriously, and they took it seriously. So walk in, I was told by my legal team to have a little, speech made. It's going to be, speak for 2 minutes, tying in old Hollywood and Givenchy, which I thought I did quite brilliantly. And it was going to be a 20-minute conversation. We would get our ruling and be ready to go. So it was 3 hours and 20 minutes. Correct. I sweat in places I didn't even know I could sweat. I was in the middle, I had my architect on one side, I had my historical architect on the other, and every single question came at me. Again, I highly recommend showing up for these things because a lot of times companies hire what are called expediters to have these conversations at City Hall. Go. Make sure I am the face of the brand. I am the face of LVMH for this specific project, and I think they took us a lot more seriously because of this. And while we were having our conversation, we had the entire committee was there in front of us, which was fantastic, and it was really quite a great time. And I think when I was speaking with my CEO about this project, Renaud at the time, who I absolutely love, he's so soft-spoken and so gentle, and he hired me, who is very clearly has an opinion. And he looked at me and said, Aaron, I do not want this building to be Americanized. I was like, okay, you don't want it to go back to being perfect. It's like, okay. I was like, so Renaud, you want this building to have 18 hours of sleep and a couple touches of Botox. And he went, oui. And I went, great. So that was my plan. So I walk into City Hall and I did my opening remarks, and part of it was actually from his EVP, which is the Employee Value Proposition. And I'm gonna read it because this is what he said, and I absolutely agree with this, is we are conscious of our impact and act accordingly. We own our responsibilities and are dedicated to use our influence to lead positive change. I believe in that, and that's why I do love LVMH so much, is because we are trying to lead with positive change. And I thought that very much so aligned with the standards of rehabilitation, which states, acknowledge the need to alter or add to a historical building to meet continuing or new uses while retaining the building's historic character. And that was where I led the charge with this, because I did believe that there was a few things that we were going to do for this building, and those key opportunities were, for the first time, this building was going to be under one tenancy. We weren't going to have separate tenants in here. There was going to be one signage program on the building, no vacant signs, and Givenchy through LVMH was going to give this building a proper and comprehensive, though very expensive, maintenance program, which we are still doing to this day. So again, 3 hours and 20 minutes later, we kept discussing, keep deducting, and there was one thing that we needed to get out of this meeting, and that was called an ad hoc committee. And the reason we needed an ad hoc committee was because of these little lovelies, the fireplaces. We were in a catch-22. I was not allowed to file and be approved for a demo permit until I knew if the fireplaces existed. I didn't know if the fireplaces existed unless I got a demo permit. How can I tell anybody what's behind that? So we needed them to tell us, ooh, we have a really good idea. It took us about 3 hours to get there. And it was, by the way, we think that there should be an ad hoc committee. Fantastic idea. So the ad hoc committee became of two gentlemen, a gentleman and a woman. And get a little lost there. Two things that they were talking about. Mark Tarrant was the president, and he was one of the ad hoc committee members, and he was absolutely insane, would be the right word, about the HVAC duct across the top of the building that needed to be removed. We'll get further into that. And then Jill Collins was the other one, who I ended up becoming very good friends with. So after our 3 hours and 20 minutes, we got 100% approval. And I was so proud, so pleased. I told my boss that it was going to be a 20-minute meeting. My phone was blowing up. I finally had to turn it off and put it underneath because she was waiting and waiting. But 100% approval later, we got started. And then that's when these started happening. So I have the patience of a gnat. Anybody who knows that I make it look like I have patience. I really don't. The next day, I marched into the store, and there was linoleum in shop 1, there was carpet in shop 2 and shop 4. So I started ripping up the carpet, and I found the original floors. That was not the plan. So we did have we had our historical architects, and we also had our design architect, Georgina, there at the time. And we had our samples. So we laid the samples out, and we thought, can we do this? Okay, how much time do we have? So we found our CEO, and he picked up, and we're thinking we're going to do this. And he was like, please send me some photos. We did. He was like, go for it. Let's see what happens. So we started getting a few things. So we needed the recipe. So this is the recipe for Frank Lloyd Wright red floors. It's very difficult to read. I'm not going to go through it. We got a cross-section of the floors to figure out exactly how far the red goes, and praise God, it was not the entire slab that was dyed, it was just the top. So with this information, we got cooking. We're like, okay, so what can we do? My parents were at Taliesin West at the time. God bless them, they were sending hundreds of photos. And so we got photos of Taliesin West, we got pictures of the Hollyhock House, we got pictures of many other different floors to compare the different reds. And what were we able to do? So then we took these, we created our own samples, because we didn't know how far we wanted to go. Did we want to just do a partial? Did we want to leave some of the trenching that was in? Or did we want to go full? And we brought in the historical architects for this. What is the best? What's the closest? We have no interior photos of what it looked like, so we didn't have anything to go off of. So choices were made. We got started, and we got the very messy part going. A few other fun facts. In the 60s, they decided to do HVAC trenching in shop 1, and they actually ruined many of these V's. The triangles, so we actually had to carve those back into the floor. So we sanded down the floor, and then this picture's a little blurry because I took this through the window, but this is that the floor was curing once we started finalizing what the floors were going to be. These were also our test paints that we were trying out. And then surprise number 2. This was the much bigger issue. We demoed the space, and we found the original ceilings. We had planned on doing a drop ceiling. So for those of you who have done construction, going from a drop ceiling to a non-drop ceiling causes just a few bit of issues. Those issues would be electrical conduit, and bigger issue is HVAC ducts, because we had planned on running everything through the ceiling. Again, called our CEO and said, what do you want to do? And he said, you must save them. You must save the ceiling. And we went, okay, but timeline, you must stay on timeline. Okay, but what about funding? You must stay on budget. I was like, rad. So we demoed the ceilings, we removed everything, and as you can see, there are bolts that had been blasted into the ceiling, and they had really ruined the ceiling. There were all these huge pockmarks. So this is what we were able to achieve from the ceiling after it was refinished and redone, which I think was quite great. And then I love this photo too, because this is the trench work. So this is shop one. So we had to actually resand this down, regrind everything down, and to bring it back to its original, luster as close as possible. So no HVAC in the ceiling, no extra money, no extra time. Okay, so what do? We went back to our HVAC system and our contractors, and we went to our architect and said, what you got? Talk to us. And they came up with this actually really cool idea. Why don't you build the HVAC system on the side wall, and then you can put your drywall and your millwork in front of it. We went, okay, that's a cool idea. I also absolutely think this looks like a UFO, and every time I went in there, I thought I was going to be abducted. This is what we ended up doing. So this is the HVAC system, and then this is the drywall in front of it, so it disappears. Really cool, except for we couldn't test this until the millwork went up, so we didn't know if it was going to work until it was completely hidden. This was a leap of faith. The other super fun thing that happened is this is over 7 feet tall. This attaches to our HVAC system, which has an 18-inch square. So I had some very firm conversations and emails into the HVAC company being like, how are you going to attach this within 4 feet, going from 7 feet to 18 inches? You didn't really think about that. Help us out. 3 weeks later, they did come up with that solution, which I was very, very, very grateful for. And then when the AC kicks on, it actually comes out of the slot across the top. So heat and AC comes out of there. Surprise number 3. Yes. So the landlord had been painting this building with lead paint. I really like this audience. Over and over and over a time. And so when we were coming to visit, this is an assumption, I don't know if this is true, but when we would show up, we didn't see any of this. And I need you to keep in mind, this is 15 feet, if not more. This is not a small problem. This is a massive problem. And so the water was actually getting behind the paint, rusting behind the paint, bubbles were coming up, they were exploding, and then they were running like a waterfall down all across this building. This was a massive 911 on my hands. So this is what I call my first ET moment, because we had to bring in people and we had to scrape the entire exterior of the building. On top of that, we found asbestos. So we had an abatement, we had lead paint, I still had the same budget, I still had the same time frame, with lots of new surprises. So we scraped everything off. We took it down as close as possible. We got the new paint, which is a breathable paint. We got it approved through the city and the historical architects, and we repainted this whole, damn building, which was not what our plan was, but we knew it was what we needed to do. So on top of that, we did have a super fun City Hall request, which is, I'm going to highlight it, but which is this here. So this is the screen, and this blocks the HVAC systems on the roof. So Beverly Hills has a rule that if you need to block all of your HVAC ducts from the building across from you. Okay, so this ductwork that you can still see behind it is from the 60s. So this is Mark Tarrant's request. He did not want this because he didn't like that it ruined the line of the building. In hindsight, you know what? I 100% agree with him. It's way better without it. During it, this was a pain to get taken care of. This took 4 months to do, and also keep in mind, Shop 5 was not in our scope of work at this time, so this was an extra cost and an extra addition that we needed to take care of. So what we ended up doing is, because HVAC systems are much more efficient nowadays, we were able to minimize the ductwork down, push it farther back, and we still have a screen, but we did it off of the line of the spire here. So we ended up having to use a big table, and then we painted a giant red mark across the top. We laid it on the top, and then me and Mark Tarrant would walk out across Beverly Hills, across the street, to Loewe, Loro Piana, and Prada, and he would sit and look and stare at the building and see if he could see the table with the red line. It took us 5 months, but we were able to finally get approval and move that screen back. The spire. This is probably the most fun and the most stressful thing that we had, believe it, out of everything. So we have the original photos. Again, we have nothing at night. We don't know what it was supposed to look like. We knew that it was lit from interior because we found lights on the interior. There are actually fluorescent bulbs on the interior of the spire. A few things that you'll see. This was actually either broken off or removed because this is what we inherited. I love it. Ooh. We hired a drone just to see what was going on. We don't know if the spire fell off. We don't know if the spire broke off. Super unclear, but we knew that we needed to see if we could figure it out. So we went back to the original drawings, took a look at how things were structurally done. We took the drawings of the flues. Then the question was, do we need to add any more? So the original drawing had 19 of them. We only had 18. So we went to the original photography. They only did 18. Great. What we were missing was this 4-tiered space piece, which is here, and then also the spire itself. So we got with our historical architects, refabricated the piece, refabricated the spire. Spire we did need to adjust a little bit because our structural engineers said that it was too small, probably why it did eventually end up having to come off. So we did raise it a little bit. We increased it by 1/2 inch diameter. We created scaffolding across this entire building all the way to the top. And then on a Sunday morning in June, we blocked off Rodeo Drive with the crane. I was pacing in my living room and kitchen, waiting for a phone call either from the general contractor, from City Hall, or for Beverly Hills Police shutting us down. And we dropped the spire back into, or the rod back into the spire. Shockingly, no one called me. It was really quite a lovely day. And then we had an unexpected message. So Jill Collins, who was one of the ad hoc committee members, she somehow got my personal number. I'm always shocked when people get my personal number. I'm unlisted, but Jill can do anything. I don't know if I was I want to say I was in Atlanta. I was building a store at the same time in North Park in Dallas. I was also working on a renovation in a store in Phipps Plaza in Atlanta. And I do know I was on a plane. And my phone pinged my personal, and it said, "Hi, Erin, this is Jill. My daughter purchased a historical hat at an auction by Givenchy. We're wondering if you would like to have that in the store while when the store opens. We'd happily lend it to you." Okay, well, there's a couple things running through my mind, but I was like, okay, well, let's see what happens. And you get the messages. There's the little square at the bottom that says download. So I hit download. That picture showed up. I know. This is a Cecil Beaton photograph of Audrey Hepburn. This is the hat they purchased. And the little kid in me squealed, and I just wanted to write, yes, we'll take it. I, of course, the executive, went, I will run this up the channel and I'll get back with you. My message to my CEO and president was very different. Hi, we're getting this hat. We have to use this. I don't care what you say. We're putting this in the building. This is amazing. And they wrote back, absolutely, Erin, this sounds like a fantastic idea. So I handed this project off to my assistant, Maham, who did a wonderful job. She actually had to hire a hat handler, a specific person to bring the hat in. We had to run through LVMH risk assurance policy. There was actually an insurance policy that was run on this hat. We had a glass shatterproof case created, 2 keys. One went in the safe in the store, the other went to Jill's house. And we had this hat installed after the store was opened. Jill came in to see it. I was very curious to see what this hat would look like because the codes of the house are black and white. And so looking at this, I thought it could be taupe, which would not be us, but also might be black, could be gray, unclear. It's teal. These are ostrich feathers and crystal beads. So this was donated to be in the store for quite some time by her daughter, Lily Collins. Anybody who watches Emily in Paris, that's who that is. Lovely, lovely, lovely woman. She came in, and actually she's going to be playing Audrey Hepburn in a movie coming up, so very excited to have that tie-in as well. It was in the store. It was only supposed to be in the store for 3 months. It was extended for another 3 months. It was extended for another 6 months. And then the wildfires came. We still had the hat, so I immediately called Jill and I said, what do you want to do? And she said, Erin, Beverly Hills is never going to let Rodeo Drive burn. Also, that building is concrete. It's never going to burn. Leave the hat where it is. I live in Sunset Boulevard. Something might happen to my house. So we left the hat. It was no longer there, but it was really quite a wonderful moment. And just it was so special to have the hat in place. So opening day, August 1st, 2024, I was in space for 3 weeks. And doing the Spire, I probably worked from 6:15, 6:30 in the morning till 11:30 at night every day. When we lit the Spire, I would go out into the middle of Rodeo Drive. I would have my general contractor or my project manager in the Spire, and I would be screaming at them on the phone, to the left, to the right, as they're aiming 3 giant spots through the Spire, plus 4 across the outside. And I'm just going to share some of the photos of what we were able to achieve on opening day. I love my landscape artist. Her name is Garden of Eve, Garden of Eva, which I almost didn't hire because of the name, but I absolutely love her. She was like, Erin, you need to put a tree in the front. I said, okay. She picked all the plants based off of the historical architecture and the historical photos. I think she did an absolutely fabulous job. She did a climbing rose up on the terrace. This is the entrance down to shop 1. She did all of the plants, all the planters. She did lighting. We repainted all of the finials. So this is where that cabinet was. We removed it, and then this was supposed to be the fireplace. The fireplace had been removed at this point, but instead of demoing it all the way back, we wanted to leave what was still there and then just work around it. And then for our lighting tracks, we actually lined them up with the diamond pattern on the floor, so we would continue keeping the diamond pattern because we wanted to hold to the original as much as possible. This is shop 2. So our HVAC system is behind this wall. Here's one of the fireplaces here. Here's that super fun carpet. So we actually turned it into our staircase. This carpet, this pattern actually was in Uber de Givenchy's home. So when Georgina found it, she found it one of the photos, and she found the original manufacturer, and then she had them rerun an entire new set of this fabric for our stairs. This is upstairs in shop 4. And then we're going to do some external shots. This building has been called Escher-esque, which I love because it is nothing but angles and jutting elbows. And then again, this is where that giant pit of nothing was. So our landscape architect, she was amazing. She just created these beautiful moments, and everywhere you are in this building, be it inside or outside, you either see the palm trees of Rodeo Drive or you see the landscape that we actually added to the building. And by we, I did not do it. This seating area we created, and by we, again, Maham, my assistant, and Eva. I think we were probably 4 days from opening, and I was a terror on site. I was just walking up and down the ramp trying to figure out how to make it better. And I was standing outside, and I looked at Maham, and I was like, this needs to be a patio. This has to be a patio. And Eva comes up, she's like, excuse me? I was like, we need plants. And I said, Maham, we already have approval on the furniture. Go buy more. And she's like, how much money do I have to spend? I'm like, I have no idea. Make it work. And they did this in 24 hours. Gotta love a good team. God bless a good team. We redid all of the lighting. All of the lighting is 4,000K. We changed every single one of these. We did, so these were all the fake plants are. Now there's no fake plants down there. I think it's quite beautiful downstairs. And then we added lighting as well, as I said, into the nighttime. If you have an opportunity to see this building, it's beautiful in the daytime. It's way better at night. This is where I had dinner probably about 11 p.m. after I would be aiming the spire every night. My staff would go get me Shake Shack, and I would sit in these chairs and just stare at the pretty building. What I love about this building is before we did the lighting, and I am crazy about lighting. Anybody who knows me, like my house has to be lit specifically. I knew that lighting was gonna be where we would win this, because if we didn't light this properly, you wouldn't see the details, and we didn't know about the details until we lit it properly. And so this is where I'd be screaming across the street telling them they need to re-aim this. I love that there's a little shot of the moon in this. And there's a fantastic quote that I found online that I think speaks to this photo far better than I ever could, which is, while the spire extends from the top of a hexagonal light well shaped by the ramps, if you're lucky enough to visit on a clear day, look up through the opening from the bottom floor for a glorious framing of the sky. The contrast of clean white walls and piercing blue sky almost looks like a James Turrell skyscape. And I agree with that. I love James Turrell, and I just could not agree more. And then, as you've already seen, I was lucky enough to start receiving messages like this. Architects and artists were starting to go across the street and draw this building. It had been happening, and now that there had been, some love and care put into the building, it became a part of the community. I received so many emails, so many phone calls. Some didn't like what we did. Most, they really liked what we did. And then opening day, that's me and my staff on the top, and they're all the team. Questions. I think there's mics, questions, and we'll see what I actually can answer.
First and foremost, thank you so much for your presentation. awe-inspiring. As a former retail associate and assistant manager myself, I know the merchandise is as important as the architecture. So how was it trying to display all the beautiful Givenchy clothes after getting the building done?
Ooh, good question. I think I'm going to take that in two ways. First off, it was fun. We had a good time. We had a temp store at the time before this on the 400 block. I think that was the more difficult, was trying not to kill business while we were extricating product from there to moving it over. But it was nice to have a permanent home. And then we had specific shops. So we had one shop that was men's, and then one was handbags and shoes, and then the other was women's ready-to-wear. It was really quite fun, and we got to curate it more. And it gave us a different vantage point to the product because we needed to elevate and adjust it, because we needed to make sure that it was architectural enough, not necessarily to compete, but to be a part of and live within the building as well. So I think it was really, really quite fun to do it.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm sorry, you also asked about the flag, yes?
I had a question about that flag, because I found it interesting, the flag, and you took it out.
Yes.
You took the flag out.
For what reason?
Yeah.
That's a great question. Because it was quite a battle to get that flag up. It was funny when we opened the store. We had some people who were very displeased about it, that we had the flag on the spire. It was a request from my CEO at the time that he wanted the flag up there. We had a flag in our temp store, but unfortunately, unless there was a stiff wind, the flag was like this all the time. So again, me being the quirky me that I am, and please forgive me when I'm going to say this, I was like, we needed to give the flag a little bit of Viagra to make sure that it would stay up all the time. So we put rods in it to keep it up. And the new CEO just requested that they didn't want the flag up anymore. They thought the building was better without it. So I just had the conversation saying, if we're going to do this, please note if I remove this, I'm never going to get this back up again. It did not. It was really just the spire.
My turn? Okay. Yeah, I'm back here. I think I missed something, but how did you end up owning the building? Because if you told us, I'm sorry if I missed it, but I missed a gap there of some sort.
No, there isn't a gap. We don't own the building. We lease the building.
And you still did all of that work to it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And my name's Sarah. Would you please tell Jeffrey here that I said hello?
Well, Jeffrey's actually here. He's probably going to die if I put him out, but he's here. He's actually right there. Standing up. Jeffrey, you're such a star.
Hi. Thank you so much for that presentation. That was incredibly interesting. At the very beginning in the introduction, you mentioned trying to work through a lens of sustainability. You talked about some renovation you had done earlier with maybe keeping in mind energy consumption, efficiencies and such. I know this was a historical rehabilitation, but were you able to include some of those elements as part of the rehabilitation?
Into this project or into other? This project? No, this project was about survival.
Okay.
Other projects, Tiffany and Company is very good about this. They have solar panels on all of their roofs. Miami Design District uses a lot of rainwater to reuse within their buildings. And then also there's another project that I'm personally working on, which is we're using demoed materials out of construction. We break it down, and there's a company called GeoCycle, and they make it into new concrete and new siding materials. And then we're looking for their sister company to purchase those back. So we're trying to make our construction projects more sustainable, more in their life cycle, that we demo it, we have it remade into new materials, and then we repurchase those back. That's the goal. We're not there yet, but that's the goal.
Awesome, thank you.
Hello. The work you and your team did is beautiful. Came out very well. Were you able to stay on budget?
Oh, God, no. But I was not fired. So, to answer that question, I did have monthly meetings with my CEO. It got to the point that I was like, okay, look, we got to talk. I'm also very real, clearly, and I'm not shy. And I just said, I knew for me, my project manager, my president, and the CEO, we knew that if we didn't succeed and take this building to at least what it could be, we're on Rodeo Drive. we will fail as a brand. So I knew that there needed to be some, fancy financing. And there's a few things that, I believe budgets can be fluid. Capital gets a little more, difficult. But I was able to take the hoarding across the front. We had to do a massive hoarding across the front of this building. It cost a lot of money. But since we put an image on it, I looked at my CEO and said, that's a billboard and that should go on comms budget. And he went, I agree. The comms people hated me, but I got it off my budget. So there was some fancy financing to make it work. But yes, I was absolutely over budget.
Thank you for the presentation. You mentioned the challenges with ADA. Is there an elevator in this building?
There is not. There is the biggest challenge of ADA compliance. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Could you review the different length of time for the different phases of this project from your initial interest to completion?
About 2.5, 3 years. So it was a very long project. Were we working through all of it? No. Was I having a panic attack through all of it? Yes. I think from the initial, that we saw it to when we really got the project up and running, it was probably 4 months. And then we had that first disastrous meeting with City Hall. That was probably a few months later. So about, I would say, 2.5 years. If I was to say anything, my parents are here, ask them. They probably know the emotional timeline of my erratic better than I do.
All right, we have time for maybe one more question. Okay, go ahead, Larry.
Thank you very much. We were comparing the before and after pictures and looked it up and all that, but it was very hard to tell. Did you replace all the glass in the front? Did you extend? It was hard to tell. And is that the original glass? And
it's the original glass. The only thing that we did is replace the glass in shop 1 down beneath because it needed to be changed, but we didn't replace any of the other glass. Because honestly, some of those pieces of glass are embedded in the concrete and they have been there. So that's Pandora's box, and I already had Pandora's box on my hand. If we take that out, what were we going to do? And I already had my own issue of budget problems, so that has not been tackled yet, but we're going to leave it. It hasn't been tackled. Anything else? Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much, Erin. That was amazing. That was amazing. Well, thank all of you for coming. We really appreciate it. We're so thrilled to have lured Erin from New York to be part of this event. And as many of you probably know, we have gone through our own preservation initiative, replacing our roof, bringing it back to the original intention of Frank Lloyd Wright with cedar shingles and reclaiming some of the original design elements that had been lost over the years. So come visit. I invite all of you to come visit the house, and we really appreciate you being part of the community. Have a good rest of the afternoon.